When we're talking about embellishments, especially for followers, we typically have specific movements in mind. A couple of weeks ago, I did a lesson on the tap. So tapping the foot can be an embellishment in your dance. We know other embellishments, like for example, when you do a sandwich and you go around the foot, pivoting, and then you can do a circular movement with your feet before stepping over the foot. That's an embellishment. The idea of embellishment as a movement is something that gets introduced really early to dancers, and we learn to do them as their own movements. But here's what happens. There's either dancers who can then do this embellishment, but then they do it all the time without any difference, or dancers who are too unsure of themselves and they don't actually know when to do it or if they're doing it correctly, so they don't do anything. And neither one is actually a real connection to the music, right? So that's not what we want. We want to overcome that block if we're experiencing that question in ourselves. What is the proper way of embellishing? The answer is, of course, going to be in the music. So the shift that we need to make mentally is to realize that anything that you know as a standalone embellishment needs to exist on a continuum of your own movement. It needs to be part of your general movement, and it needs to serve the music. Let's divide all of tango music, all of the textures and the dynamics that you might experience in tango between two main qualities, and that is staccato and legato. Legato is that feeling of a continuous line of melody, as if you're just holding a note. And the way you can imagine it is more of like you're drawing something in space. Like if I were to hold the note la, that would be considered legato. But if I were to take that same note and instead punctuate it and make it into a beat, la 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 la, that would be staccato. Staccato is the opposite of legato. It's the contrast. It's something that's more vertical. So these directions of horizontal and vertical is something you can take into your movement and realize that whatever embellishment that you know can exist both as a staccato embellishment or a legato embellishment. But let's say, for example, we take a movement like a circling of the leg. What is this embellishment here? What are we embellishing? We're embellishing a sidestep, a side extension here. So for example, if I were to go sidestep and sidestep, this extension of the leg can become an expressive stylization tool. So even if I do a tap, for example, I do a tap before stepping to the side, what have I done? I've embellished the side step. I didn't do a tap. I didn't do a circle of my leg. That's the embellishment itself. But what did I do? I stylized my side step. So when you're thinking about Canaro and Guardia Vieja, which is the early tangos, you are dealing with simplified arrangements, and they're really good to practice hearing these two main differences. Canaro is really good at giving us very clear contrast between phrases. So one phrase will be very staccato, very choppy, very rhythmic. The next phrase will be legato. And he keeps switching back and forth. Now I want to give you a visual example, and this is something that you can do by yourself in front of a mirror, maybe even videoing yourself. That's always a bonus. But taking a simple song by Canaro, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dance side steps. Okay, I am going to be dancing side to side, and my task is going to be to show the texture of Canaro's music by stylizing my side step. So sometimes I will be stepping and I will be trailing my collecting leg. So instead of stepping and collecting like this, you'll see me do something different. That's a form of stylization. Sometimes I'll do some circles, sometimes I'll do taps, But you'll hear that what I'm trying to do is convey what Canaro is doing in the music, that the way he's arranging the melody. The melodies sometimes are very rhythmic and sometimes it's melodic. You might ask your body whether when you're hearing something, do you want to tap or do you want to draw the line in space? So then think about your movement, your embellishment. Whatever embellishment that you're doing needs to fit into one of these textures. That means that if I'm dancing something very legato, it makes sense for me to do things with the trailing leg, but it doesn't make sense for me to do taps, right? Because taps are a vertical embellishment. So would I be doing taps with legato? Maybe if I can make them horizontal, but typically I will reserve tapping or anything that's more like this for more vertically driven rhythmic melody, the melody that makes me feel staccato. But then when the melody switches, when the vocals come in, when we shift into listening to the violins, then it's a signal to use the other quality, the opposite, thinking horizontal, thinking flow. So check out this little demo and I'll see you in a minute.
Milagro, milagro de cerrar en mi herida con besos que son canciones en mi vida, fuerza milagrosa de tus ojos, canto en la penumbra de mi alma, milagro, milagro de tus labios rojos, milagro, que me trajiste con mi amor.
Okay, so hopefully that gave you some inspiration to maybe try something like this on your own. And thinking about your own movements that you've already learned, different embellishments that you've learned, imagine how you can stylize them to fit the music better. Now, of course, for some of you, you're like, but how do you get to know the music this well? Because on some level, even with Guardia Vieja music, which you can get away with just knowing the rhythm because the music is so repetitive. So as long as you can step on the beat, you'll do great. It feels fine. But when you start wanting to be musical and express the deeper layers of what the music has to offer, then it's not enough to just be with the rhythm. And just by virtue of listening to these songs over and over again, the more you hear, the more you will want to express. So one of the key things that you must do as a social dancer seeking to be more musical is just listen to the music as much as possible, which is why I provided you with a Spotify playlist, and I do that once a month for each orchestra that we cover so that you can have that practice time. But also, this is exactly what we focus on inside my I'm So Tango School Online. It's an online program that trains social dancers to hear the music in this way and learn how to transform their dancing through learning musicality. Check it out. The link is in the show notes. You get 30 days free as a trial to see if this is something that's useful. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I invite you to do so because I post one of these every Saturday. And I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.